Welcome, girls, to this little screencast of the Independent Research Project Assessment Task Notification. The Independent Research Project begins today, and as you can see from the task sheet, which you may have in front of you, is due for submission on the 26th of February next year. So the girls studying CAFs have about 8 school weeks in which to conduct the Independent Research Project and have this submitted to their teacher by the due date. In order to successfully complete the Independent Research Project, there are a number of parts or benchmarks that students need to meet over the next 8 weeks. The first of those benchmarks is the presentation of a project plan, which is a detailed plan of what and how you intend to investigate a CAFS question, and you will present this to your class in the form of a 5-minute Ignite presentation. The second benchmark, which will be presented next year, is an illustration of your data collection and analysis, which is called an infographic. Some of you may be familiar with the infographic, which is just a pictorial version of the data that you collect and presented to your teachers and to your classmates in a slightly imaginative format. And the third benchmark, which is an ongoing benchmark, is the project journal. And the project journal in this case will be kept on your school Blogger account, and instructions on how to access this will be on the IRP website. You will log into Blogger using your classmate school account, and Google provides Blogger for you to use, and you must supply your Blogger address to your teachers. That will be read both by your teacher, myself and the other class teacher, and your classmates as well. The blog must include at least 1 entry each week, and therefore there'd be a minimum of at least 8 entries that are required. This is an important part of the research project in that you will use your reflections in your conclusion at the end of the written report, which you'll submit on the 26th of February. So it is in your best interest to make as many entries as are possible, but at least once per week will be required. And finally, you will submit the Independent Research Project to your teacher on the 26th of February. The research project will be 1,800 words in length. The study for your project will be your own question that will be related to the content of the Community and Family Studies syllabus, which is available from the Board of Studies Teaching and Educational Standards website. So it's really important, ladies, that you take the time, invest the time early on to come up with a driving question and a research proposal which will sustain your interest, obviously, for 7 or 8 weeks, but also is carefully aligned to the Community and Family Studies syllabus. And a copy of that syllabus will be available on the IRP website for your use as well. But the research project itself is 1,800 words. It contains all of the following sections, some of which you'll be more familiar with owing to your literature review that you did last term. Most research projects begin with an abstract, which is a brief summary of your research project. This should be quite short and should include some keywords as well that are particular to your particular study. And the abstract includes briefly an overview of your objectives and the research methods that you've used, any findings and some future recommendations as well. Usually in a research project of some length, the researcher acknowledges the help or the assistance given to their project by their teachers, by their classmates, by the people who participated in their surveys, interviews, case studies, etc. as well. The research project begins with an introduction, which is an explanation of how you conducted the research project. It includes an overview of the methodologies that you've used and clearly links to the CAF syllabus. So it highlights what your question is, what your hypothesis or what your hunch is about what you hope to find, and really sets up the rest of the research report. The literature review, which you should be familiar with, is an analysis of some information that you have read related to your topic area. And you'll note there that you must refer to at least 3 sources of information. The aim of the literature review is to show that you have read widely and deeply about your particular topic before you come at a particular question. And the literature review then is a summary of the reading that you have done, which is related specifically to your topic area. The section on methodology explains how you conducted the research project, which focuses on both primary and secondary data collection methods that you have used. And really you need to show why your choice of methodology is suitable for the research project that you are undertaking. The results section includes any graphs and tables that you have collected to summarise the quantitative data or a summary of what you have found in any qualitative methodologies that you may have used. Any analysis of that data happens in the section under the heading analysis. It addresses any of the results that you found specifically, includes both your primary and your secondary research that has been conducted, and should be clearly linked to the literature review. I think this is a really important part of the process that the teachers will be looking very carefully at both the analysis and the conclusion, which will show your depth of understanding or your critical analysis and evaluation of the work that you have been doing. It's also in this section that you make some recommendations. So you may find some things out from your primary research on which you can then go forward and recommend some actions that people may need to undertake as a result of this particular research. The conclusion draws everything together. It links together the literature review and the analysis. It highlights your main findings. And this is the point at which you reflect back on those journal entries. And it's really important that you do this in this particular section, highlighting the issues or problems that you had and maybe possible solutions to those, and then identify what are the gaps of your research, and therefore what questions might drive future research into the area that you have selected. And finally, you end up with a bibliography, which is a comprehensive list of references that you have used, and you will present that correctly in the Harvard style. And you will find a Harvard style manual in the Independent Research Project website, but you'll also find that in your student handbook as well. It's at this point, girls, that you should go through and look at the marking guidelines. I'm only going to spend a very brief amount of time looking at these with you. That the difference in each of the mark bands is the word critical, and what we're looking for is a depth of understanding. So it's a quality of showing that you actually understand what you've been doing, the conduct of your research, and that you can critically reflect on, make judgments about, and draw conclusions about the research findings and present those to us in a logically written report, which is obviously within the 1,800 word limit. And that's a very, very important part of this project, is that you're able to write logically and cohesively within the word limit and present that to us. Obviously it needs to be correctly referenced and correctly styled, because it is a research paper and it's something that we would like to publish as part of your coursework, so that other researchers can tap into your good work. At this point you should really focus on what you need to do in order to get into those top bands, and you will note that the difference between excellent and high is really that quality of critique. How well can you add that quality of depth of understanding? How well do you evaluate? How well do you apply appropriate research methodologies? How well do you unpack those findings, and how well do you draw some conclusions based on the research and based on the evaluation? So that's the research project. You will note that those benchmark activities will be planned for you, with due dates obviously for project plan, which is benchmark 1, and the infographic, which is benchmark 2. and that benchmark 3, the project journal, is an ongoing activity that you'll need to regularly make these entries in, and that your teachers will read and probably comment back on what your findings are. If you have any questions, girls, it's really important that you ask those at this particular point in time. You can ask those on Edmodo, and I'll endeavour to answer those questions as quickly as I can for you. So hopefully this has been quite a useful little activity for you, and it gives you a sense of what the Independent Research Project is. In the next little screencast, we'll take a short look at the website, and we'll use that little guide to show you how the conduct of the research project will happen over the next 7 or 8 weeks. Thank you for listening to this podcast.